Chicago, officially incorporated in 1837, has grown into the third largest city in the United States, boasting a rich history and a metropolitan population of over 9 million. But behind the towering skyline and bustling streets lies a hidden story, the tale of its founder, Baptiste du Sable, a black Haitian trader. Du Sable's legacy is etched across the city, yet few know of his remarkable journey. Born a Haitian trader, he married a Potawatomi woman and laid the groundwork for Chicago, becoming its first non-native settler. However, his story takes an unexpected turn. Less than 2 decades after founding the settlement, he sold his property and departed, leaving behind a legacy that echoes through the ages. Join me on the Chicago Chronicles as we embark on a captivating journey from the humble beginnings of Chicago to the towering concrete jungle that it is today. I'm your host, Colin McCarthy, and this is where Chicago begins. Before we get to the DuSable story, I want to make it clear that he is not the first person to discover the area and then settle it. The area's existence was known for more than 100 years before DuSable settled there in the mid-1780s. The first people to document that area were Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette, explorers from Canada near Quebec City during the time when that area was known as New France. There was still very much an emphasis on trying to get to the east during those times. Marco Polo's stories had filled the heads of European explorers with fantasies of traveling to India, so Joliet and Marquette's goal was to find water to, well, India. However, the water that they were shown from the local natives in the area was the Mississippi River, and it would lead them to the mouth of Lake Michigan, where they would document the area that would later become Chicago for the first time. You see, in that time period, it was very much known as the golden age of French exploration, and the Illinois country was a place that had heavy French involvement. René Robert Cavelier de La Salle would have a fortress near what is present-day Starved Rock. Fearing for their safety from native attacks, La Salle and the French would leave that area and would never actively settle there again. While there have been many people who have lived in the area of the early Chicago settlement, the title of the first non-native permanent settler belongs to Jean-Baptiste du Sable. The place and date of his birth are unknown. We don't know who his parents were. In fact, we have no record of him at all until the summer of 1779. What we do know about him is that his last name, du Sable, was of high respect in the New France origins. Du Sable himself was a black man, but in his writings, described himself as a free man. Without proper documentation, we must resort to speculation. He was most likely base-born, meaning his parents were not married, so his mother was most likely a slave. And due to France's involvement in modern-day Haiti, we can also speculate that she was Haitian. However, due to his occupation as a trader, a good reputation with his contemporaries, his speech, and his French name, we can assume that he was a member of and raised by one of the most notable families in Northwest Canada. Going back to our first definite documented knowledge of DuSable in 1779, he had a house and trading establishment in modern-day Michigan City, Indiana. It was a time of great confusion in the Western country, occasioned by conflicts between George Roger Clark and his British opponents. There was this tiny little war called the American Revolution happening on the East Coast. DuSable found himself on the border between the hostile forces. and in the summer of 1779, a corporal's guard of soldiers appeared and placed de Sable under arrest. He was arrested on suspicion of treasonable intercourse with the enemy. Despite his capture, Lieutenant Bennett reported that de Sable behaved in every respect. He was taken to Mackinac as a prisoner, and upon arrival, Lieutenant Governor Patrick Sinclair took command of Mackinac. De Sable, despite all odds, would earn Sinclair's full trust and would be put in charge of his estate called the Pinery during his stay. De Sable stayed at the Pinery until the early 1780s. It is understood that 1783 or 1784 is when de Sable left for Chicago. During his time in Chicago, there isn't much documentation of his goings-on. He was a trader by occupation, so there is no doubt that that's what he was spending his time doing. We do, however, have documentation of the first child born in Chicago. His daughter, at just 16, gave birth to his granddaughter, and she was named Eulalia. In 1800, de Sable ended his time in Chicago and sold his estate to a Jean Lelime, a trader from Quebec. We don't know his reasoning for leaving Chicago behind, but we do know how he spent his final years. An 1813 document shows de Sable conveying a house and lot in St. Charles, Missouri, with other properties to a Eulalia Barraud, wife to Michael de Race, under the condition that Eulalia would take care of him and bury him in the St. Charles Cemetery. Eulalia is believed to be de Sable's granddaughter. And the final document we have pertaining to de Sable sadly comes from a prison in St. Charles. In 1814, on October 10th, he applied to the court for permission to take to the benefit of the laws concerning insolvent debtors. Whether or not his granddaughter followed up on her promise, or if de Sable is buried in the St. Charles Cemetery, is unknown. A man whose existence is known only through documentation and entries in other people's journals is bewildering to me. De Sable has such an incredible story, and he never could have imagined that his decision to settle permanently in Chicago would lead to the development of one of the largest cities in the world. After his departure in 1800, it would take Chicago another 37 years to become incorporated as an official city in the United States. But before we get there, we have some stories to tell of before Chicago became a city. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.